The Dynamics of Change, Finding Equipment for Living in the film 16 Blocks. My name is Neely Manemi, grad student at Queen's University of Charlotte. Scholars such as Young and Brummett have applied Kenneth Burke's concept of using literature as equipment for living to film. In his article from 2000, Young stated, quote, "The interest is in how viewers consciously interpret the symbolic potential of film and how they use those interpretations to negotiate the struggles of everyday life," end quote. This literature review argues that the cybernetic connection between meaning and action, combined with the cognitive impact of action in film, to make 16 Blocks equipment for living for people who think they are defined by their mistakes. Literature review. 16 Blocks, Thematic Messages of Change and Cybernetic Theory. 16 Blocks is the story of two men who are defined by their mistakes in the eyes of everyone around them. Through the symbolic contrasting of these two characters, this film creates equipment for living by proposing an answer to the question, can people change? Detective Jack Mosley, portrayed by Bruce Willis, is an aging, overweight, alcoholic cop. He's given the worst possible assignments and his fellow officers clearly feel they can't rely on him. He's also heavily burdened by mistakes of his past. Eddie Bunker, portrayed by Mos Def, is a habitual thief and prisoner turned witness. No detective wants the assignment that Mosley is given to transport him to the courthouse. But in spite of all the negative energy from the people surrounding him, Eddie Bunker is clearly determined to realize his dream of a better life. So very early in the film, Detective Jack Mosley is set up for the viewer as a representation of the mindset that people cannot change. Eddie Bunker is set up as the representation of the idea that they can. Cybernetic tradition at work. Believable physical action makes the viewer more receptive to the cognitive messages in both the text and action of the film. Viewer receptiveness to 16 Blocks is accomplished through the impact of communicative physicality, as explained by Dale Seifert. In his 2001 analysis of the popular film The Fugitive, Seifert states, quote, "This action hero is successful, but he is never godlike." That is also true of the characters Mosley and Bunker in 16 Blocks. The obstacles to change for both Mosley and Bunker are relationship tensions, best viewed through Peirce's Coordinated Management of Meaning theory, or CMM. The CMM concepts of rules of action and logical force explain the embedded relational expectations that serve as a catalyst, bringing the film to a point of crisis. Finally, key to understanding the motivation for Mosley's unexpected decision to act against those rules of relationship is Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance. One of the two driving premises of this theory states that, quote, "Dissonance produces tension that creates pressure to change." The changes in the two main characters are born out of their simple but courageous choices to act outside the realm of other people's expectations. Eddie Bunker acts outside the expectations of a habitual thief with simple actions throughout the film, such as clinging to his recipe book even in the face of flying bullets, a moment of kindness to a frightened child, or even a simple description of a business plan for his bakery that he wants to open. These actions build upon each other to create an impression of authenticity that leads Mosley to trust Bunker in spite of himself. Jack Mosley acts outside of expectations when he takes a stand against a friend of 20 years, outwits and outperforms the enemy in spite of his poor physical condition, and in the end, he incriminates himself in order to save Bunker, taking responsibility for those past mistakes. As his internal tension is relieved by doing what he feels is right, Mosley's relational tension with Bunker disappears as well, and he says, "You saved my life, kid." In the final scene, the viewer is presented with a photo of Bunker in front of his new bakery, held up by a physically renewed, sober Mosley, surrounded by family and friends. Transformation of the two men is complete, and equipment for living for the viewer is established. Methods and data. Using proven methodology to produce substantive data. Young's approach to studying movies as equipment for living, called the symbolic developmental approach, would be a logical foundation for a study on 16 blocks. This would make the project qualitative, and the general format would be: Step 1. Participants would have 2 weeks to view a copy of 16 blocks at their convenience on their own time. Step 2 would be to have them come in for open interviews, which would be preceded by a consent form for them to sign and a very brief demographic survey. Those interviews would, of course, be recorded and transcribed for data analysis later. Steps 3 and 4 would be minor adjustments to Young's original format, in that it would be helpful to increase the number of participants from 12 to 20, and also to add on a follow-up interview in 5 years. It would also be wise to anticipate any objections by future reviewers when deciding on the finer details of both study design and data analysis. Gail Fairhurst's 2014 article provides many helpful suggestions along those lines. Conclusions. 16 blocks provides an effective representational anecdote to serve as equipment for living for people who believe the message that their past mistakes define them. Because the story is rooted in a network of relationships that are unhealthy, there is broader application for 16 blocks as equipment for living in a group setting. If applied through the lens of CMM theory, there is potential use in other areas such as corporate training or perhaps family therapy. Overall, there is enough heuristic value in 16 blocks as equipment for living and in CMM theory as an analytical lens to warrant further study.